right, time check is 3 minutes past 7 p.m. on our studio clock. Welcome to Grow with Sunshine on Bright FM 98.7. It's about another time to have a fantastic conversation on radio. Last week was amazing. We had Cindy here and we talked about, branding and how you can put yourself out there as a young person who is starting up with businesses and how you can do well, with visibility and what have you. And I hope that we had a fantastic conversation. Today, we're about to have another conversation and my guest is right here in the studio. And like I would always say, bring your village people, your friends, your family members. This is a platform where young people learn, laugh, get inspired, and then grow with sunshine. You guys, my guest is in the house. His name is Jhay Harbor. Good evening, Jay. How are you doing?
Good evening, Sunshine. I'm doing very great.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate that you're here.
My pleasure.
All right, so I'm going to just quickly introduce Jay. His full name is Joseph Harbor, and he is a dynamic leader. He's a transformational speaker. He's also a social reform advocate, and he's a multifaceted professional whose influence spans industries and audiences. Now, Jay is on the mission to lead, innovate, and disrupt, whether in the boardroom, on stage, just about anywhere. His message is clear, all right? So his message is that true change begins with bold conversations and intentional actions. And we're about to have bold conversation this evening, right, Jay? Okay, so the topic that we're about to treat this evening is a very relatable topic because, if you're living in Nigeria as a young person, you're definitely going to relate to this topic. And we're looking at the struggles of young people living in Nigeria and how to survive in today's Nigeria. This is a very important topic with the harsh economic realities on ground. What is happening with young people? We're looking at a lot of people trying to hustle to make ends meet, a lot of young people losing inspiration, surviving more than dreaming. So this is a conversation that you really want to pay attention to. So like I said, make sure that you stick to your radio set. You can also be part of the conversation. In case you want to either reach out to us via call or text message, the number to call us on is 0808-704-1217. 0808-704-1217. To send us a text message on WhatsApp, 0901-615-0614. Welcome one more time, Jay.
Thank you, Sunshine.
This chill.
Thank
This
you
is
for having
this is
me.
a very chill set. Okay, so we're going to be having
Actually,
yes, we're going to be having serious conversations, but again, do you understand?
Yeah.
We're still flexible rather, laughing in between and what have you. So take us on a journey on who. Your journey growing. You grew up in Nigeria, right?
I grew up in Nigeria.
Fantastic. As a young person who is looking at building a brand, thriving in Nigeria, how has it been for you so far, so good?
Oh, it's been the typical story of the Nigerian. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
average Nigerian.
Yeah.
I was born with something not so far from the silver spoon. Not exactly the silver spoon.
But there is silver spoon
There was
inside.
small silver spoon inside
Yes.
there. So it's a typical story of that I think a lot of Nigerians will relate with.
Yeah.
Something I call the Nadia we did before kind of story. The born into a comfortable home, a chauffeur was taking you to school. For those who know the Mercedes flats, flat bands then, and all of those. And then eventually the story now, and
They now took
there
this
was
spoon.
they just collected this thing small. So from being something
Yeah.
close to silver, it started becoming something close to plastic. That's just a typical story. I was born into a family that was quite religious. My father was a preacher.
Yeah.
My mom at the early stage was what we call in today's world a hustler. She was quite the entrepreneur. She was into multiple businesses. Probably where I got that stuff, that trait from, because I studied her growing up.
Yeah.
And then I was coming from a place where there was a lot of expectations of being the first. And,
You're the first
I'm
child.
the first child. Actually, 6 years before, almost as if I locked the gate of life before my siblings started coming. I'm 6 years older than my immediate sibling. So there was a whole lot of expectation from the family, what they wanted you to do, people trying to live their life through you, and then trying to leap above that idea of what success is. You know, you are expected to read law. I was expected to start preaching.
Sorry,
quite
that
early.
means we have something in common. My dad wanted me to study law.
Idea.
Yeah.
I actually started studying law.
Okay.
The family woke up one morning and realized I was no longer studying law. I was in a school called Ivy State University, and
You switched courses
I
by
switched
yourself.
by myself.
You didn't let your parents know.
They didn't know.
Oh, okay.
So I just
It's
switched.
the audacity for me, but continue.
And not that I was doing bad, but
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling the passion. I was driven by something else, and not to disappoint them, I had to go to something very close
To law. Oh,
but I
okay.
just didn't want to do law. That was my first act of defiance, trying to break free from a family that had that such high expectation. And probably who I am now, I probably wouldn't have done that. So something I think that even young people should start learning how to cope passion.
Yeah. So from your journey, you grew up in a family. You were well-to-do, so to say.
Well-to-do,
Silver spoon right there. At some point, it was as if you spiraled downwards. And then growing up as a young person, moving from that point of life up until now. To be very sincere, you've done pretty well for yourself.
Thank you.
And that's why you're here, because just like I said, there's somebody who is listening now who may be a young person who is at the point where you used to be.
Sure.
So the essence of this conversation is to let them understand that you can also journey into greatness, yeah?
Sure.
So, and we're going to take the typical Nigerian person as our case study this evening. So, you know how it is that these days people want to jab, but people are just basically looking for where the green pasture is. Exactly. So I want you to paint me a picture of the how, how they do a day in the life of this person. Yeah, an average Nigerian youth. Can you paint me a picture of how a day in their life, looks, just in your head? Because I mean, you work with these people.
Yes. From my observation so far, and this is not me trying to be negative, but the ultimate lot of the young working professional, the young African working professional, or the African youth is mediocrity, or it has been designed to fall into mediocrity. And this is not me being negative or being pessimistic, it's just the realities of the times.
Yeah.
Because not only have we succumbed to what culture has dragged us into, it is also what our flawed educational system has brought us into. For many people who do not know, the education system that we are practicing now, from when it was introduced to the country, wasn't introduced to train a subject, it was introduced to plant something in an object. Let me explain.
Please.
They were trying, our colonizers, the idea was to build people who would be able to subscribe to their ideas without absolutely being logical. So you were being trained to adapt to their culture, to think like them, or at least how they want you to think. And so this determined the syllabus and the curriculum that we were being trained. We were seeing the world from the lens of what those people determined. And unfortunately, this has been the story up till now. We have been unable to break out completely and jump into something that would also find a way to appeal to the realities that we live in. So we are learning things in theory. The reality of the average Nigerian students, who are the ones who are probably the ones who suffer these things more, is that they are being filled with head knowledge. So they are coming out as knowledge workers, not as applicable workers, not people who have the value to deliver. They have been fed a lot of things that are not applicable to modern relevance. So even beyond the walls of academia, they are not, or rather, let me put it this way, they have been disadvantaged because the person living in a developed world is already like 10 decades, 20 decades ahead of you. and we are not equipped with the tools to combat whatever thing that they are bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And beyond that, another thing is culture. I grew up in a time when, if you're in a classroom, forgive me for making reference to the classroom too, it was almost a taboo to challenge or question the logic of the person who was standing in front of the blackboard. So we are in a time when we were constrained. Culture had already defined certain things that we are meant to subscribe to. There was the teacher is always right. You are going to follow what the parents need or wanted you to do.
Yeah.
The parents were always right. There was a whole lot of expectations on you and a whole lot of taboos that thankfully I think with evolution have been
with Gen Z.
down. Even our Gen Zs have their own typical problems. That's a new story.
No. But if we're talking about audacity and being able to ask questions, I think that's what the Gen Z are doing.
No, asking questions is not the problem. It's asking ordinate questions. If the motive is inordinate, then the action too is wrong.
I'm going to come back to our education system because it plays a very huge role, and that's also why, in this age and time, people now have to travel abroad to just get quality education because of how dilapidated our educational system is. Right here in Nigeria, you see how that I've had to maybe converse with maybe a keke driver who would say, oh, I made a very good grade in school, and at the top of your head you're trying to ask, so what are you doing here? And if you put it side by side, the answer is just right there looking at you. But again, the title of this particular program is we're looking at the struggle. So that's where we're going to begin. As somebody who has been working with young people for a period of time, counseling them and grooming them, what are some of the struggles that comes up every other time that you're having conversations with them?
Still standing on what I said earlier, the poor education, the infrastructures that are there, the limited access to compasses.
Yeah.
Let me explain. There are few people to give that sense of direction to those who are coming from the womb. And unfortunately, we are living in a country where those who we have given the power to manage the affairs have continually chosen to lead our future to the tomb instead of groom them from the womb. So there is this lack of compasses to drive the way, tell you this is it and this is not it. I can tell you personally, I had to deal with that a whole lot. So getting to where I am today, it wasn't easy, and I wouldn't like to pretend that I knew it all. I struggled for quite a while. There was a time I was filled with a whole lot of trials and errors, not understanding my left from my right, and then at a point you fall into depression, which is another thing that I think a whole lot of young people are dealing with now. Their mental state is messed up. It is a very frustrating situation to be in, to know that you are made for something more, but somehow you just can't figure out what exactly it is.
When we were talking earlier, I remember when I was telling you to walk me through your topic, and what you basically said, you gave example of how, sometimes we want to sweep the realities on ground under the carpet, and then somebody somewhere is there making you feel as if the realities are not there, they are not tangible enough to want to keep you down, and somebody is inspiring you and motivating you. Please talk us through that.
Most of the people that do this is the thing. Their personalities differ from their identity, and I can boldly say that if their personalities should meet their identity in the dark, they probably would not recognize each other. So it is easy for you to talk the talk, and the doing is entirely different. There are theories that are out there, a whole lot of aspire to inspire. Not everything is applicable to modern relevance. What worked then might not be what is working in today's world. There are new realities. The 21st century realities revolve around globalization and technology and the overload of information and individualism. These are the new realities on the ground. And then for a young person who is already coming from a situation where the odds are stacked against them, you would not expect that the same way you functioned at a time when the 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 lot was on your side. It would be the same
same
way
for them.
for them. So I always tell people, in as much as we listen to those who have arisen to the heights of greatness, it is also important for us, as much as we listen to what they tell us, to look beyond what they are saying to what is the story behind this. How did we reach to this to this conclusion? And I think that is where leaders ought to start approaching these matters from, trying to put themselves in the shoes of these present days.
Yeah.
You know, that is where it starts. For me personally, I mentioned earlier that I left law. I was doing quite good in law, but every day it was so frustrating, knowing that this is not what I wanted.
I'm sorry to cut you. I had a friend also in school. It was almost towards our final 300 level, towards our final year, and you know, all the while he had been studying medicine and surgery, and you know, he went into that field because his parents kept, you know, pushing for
him.
it and all of that, and he wasn't passionate about it. And you know what, he couldn't make it through. You know, there's this exam that they usually take, you know, before you move over to the final class and whatever. He couldn't make it through. Do you know what happened? They pulled him out of our school, put him in another school to still continue. With the same.
It's a frustration.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. You can never. Birds are never taught how to fly. They have that innate ability to fly. You will never see a fish in a classroom for once. They are born with the innate ability to swim. The flaws, like I mentioned earlier, our culture, many times we want to live our lives, or we want to push success that we, those who came before us, they want to live the success that they could not attain through us. And by so doing, they are damaging an individual that is eventually going to become a gift to society. Many times you must have heard a medical doctor forgot an operating apparatus in somebody's tummy and all.
This is
Somebody
Nigeria.
cracked a joke, and he said, some of those people were probably created to be musicians, and inside that laboratory, one lyric was playing in their head, hitting so heavy that they actually forgot, I'm actually working on a human being right now. You know, and most of them probably never even wanted to do that. And then another thing that our culture has done is to push us to become people who are working to make ends meet, not people who are working to make impact. Because of course, man, if you don't have a few of kobos and nairas
You
in your,
have to
in
survive,
your,
my
in
brother.
your pocket, that's another problem entirely.
You know, and what you just said, the picture you painted, I could resonate with it, because just like you mentioned, some of those people who are, and I'm not against, you know, motivation, you know, inspiration. That's beautiful, having role models.
It has its own
you know, but
part to play,
motivation has its own role to play. In fact, I usually advise people, if you're going through a rough patch and there's somebody who has gone through that rough patch, please feed on whatever it is that they have to say, but you know how to also pick what you want.
Logical enough to sieve out what is not applicable.
Exactly.
Emphasis on applicable. Not everything out there is
applicable. And you know, with what you just said, where I was going to, you know, was that some of these persons had very conducive environments to thrive. Do you understand the point I'm trying to make? Maybe most of them even had grounds watered for them, and they are speaking from, you know, that experience. So, and you know how it is, that is when you're wearing somebody's shoe that you can relate, right? If you're a Davido whose dad maybe was there also, you know, he had his own challenges and all, but again, we won't rule out the fact that he had, you know, the finances to also support him at the time. If there's somebody in one angwa somewhere who just has the voice, do you understand? No support system whatsoever, no money, no capital, no studio, you don't even know where to go from where you are at, and you're hearing somebody like Davido inspire you, motivate you.
It looks like a fairy tale though, but the truth is this: success can happen by chance. Greatness requires sacrifice. So in as much as there are those who probably the ground was watered and all of that, if there is a height that they were able to attain, perhaps somebody was able to set a ladder for them to climb, they still made the choice to climb that ladder. I think one of the problems of the young generation is our inability to take responsibility. There is the responsibility factor that must be applied. Because it's not easy for anybody. If there is anybody who can come out from the trenches and rise to a start, just to a level that is almost divine, you can almost argue that no, this has a touch of the divine in it. It means you too can do it. The problem is most of us want to be a Moses, and just trying to use that illustration. Most of us are pursuing greatness, but we are building ourselves to become great copies of, not rather cheap copies of great originals. Not everybody can be a Moses. You can be an Aaron. You can be the engine that drives the airplane, the car, or anything. But everybody wants to be the person in the spotlight. That on its own can be frustrating. It can push you off. We have to look inwards and discover. I was there a couple of years ago. I woke up one morning. I quit my job.
You have really done audacious stuff.
I quit my job, and I told my boss.
But say the truth. Did you like have expectations that help will come from somewhere?
That's the funny thing. I didn't. I was just driven by a bloody refusal to remain in what I knew wasn't my space. So I quit my job then. I was doing very well in the branding world. I quit the job. And for a youngster who was upcoming, my boss had to call me and sit me down, ask me, what is the motivation around this crazy thing that you're doing? And I hope anybody out there will understand me. I told you, the Holy Spirit told me. And this man sat me down to ask me, which of the Holy Spirits told you? But the truth is, I had given it a whole lot of thought. And there was another person in the space I was entering to who was already thriving. And I wanted to submit myself to him, not only submit myself, but to maintain close proximity, just to feed off and understand. Because the things he was doing at the time are things that the walls of the tertiary institution could not offer to me. And it was quite audacious, because even before I came into your studio, a friend was telling me that back then she knew I didn't have a 9 to 5. So how did I survive? There may not be a job, but there will certainly be a work. There may not be a job, but there's certainly a work. You have to figure out what is it that I can offer that can be acceptable to the person who is carrying value. If you surrender completely to the circumstances that the world has pushed on you, you will remain where you are.
I agree.
The truth is, nobody is coming to save you.
Yes.
Nobody is coming, no matter the motivation, and nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything, and that's the brutal truth. You have to come to the point where you take absolute responsibility for who you are. This takes us back to the culture, because most of us have been groomed in homes where we, from primary school to secondary school, there's a parent that is catering to us. Everything we have, anything we want, we get it. There's an aunt somewhere that we can call up maybe once in a while, even those who do not have an aunt.
Which is how it's supposed to be, by the way.
It's how it's supposed to be, actually.
Let's keep that one side. As a child, there's no actually inside there.
That's
how we agree. That's how it's supposed to be. Jay, you have not agreed.
No,
that's how it's supposed to be.
This is the difference. No, wait. Our contemporaries are the other side. It isn't like that all the time.
As a child growing in a home, you should be taken care of.
Emphasis on what you said. You said a child. There is a point where you have to be led to see the true colors of the world.
Please give me an age bracket so that we would move from here.
For everybody, I think the situation they are in will determine. Have you heard of people who mentioned, and now these are people who are well-to-do, who told you that as early as 12, they've started letting their children know, if you want that toy, you've got to save the money that you've been getting to pick up things.
So that's a training in the home. That doesn't take away the fact that the parents are still very much responsible.
No, by all means, every parent is responsible for their child. Every family should be responsible for the younger ones, because they are the future that we are talking about. That was why I made reference to the sadness that is our reality. The people who are in a position of power, who have made it a choice to keep leading our future to the tomb instead of grooming us from the womb. there would definitely be, or rather, there should definitely be a platform that trains us to emerge and take up challenges that come in the future.
Yes.
Now, that is not saying that I'm not trying to in any way justify not taking care of children and all of that. No, no, no. Far
Thank
from
you.
that. Far from that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that our culture has made it a way that a lot of us have developed this addiction to dependency. Because at 18, you can be very comfortable in your father's house. You don't have any problem. There's no work anywhere. In fact, daddy will come back and second your motion. There is no work anywhere. You know, you are still my baby. You know, you stay at home. Now, for those who are wise, it doesn't matter. But there are those who feed into that and subscribe to it and choose to remain where they are because the ground is comfortable. And then we blame every other person and every other situation but ourselves. There must be a place where we take responsibility to go out there and ask ourselves, first of all, who am I? Now, against all odds, what can I do? Against all odds, what the world is presenting, what can I offer? If there is no relevant answer that comes out of this, you're already an endangered species.
So we're going to come to that when we start getting to, the solutions. We're still talking about the struggles. And I want us to talk about pressure a bit and how even with the way the world is going right now, the world is now like a small village, because of the internet. Yes, that's how exactly. So it makes that you can pick up your phone and somebody else's reality is making you drown yourself in the ocean of sadness, and you're like, this person, what does he have that I don't have? And this is where he's at and this is where I'm at, and you in your room with your phone, you're drowning in sadness. I want you to take us through that journey and how it's also impacting the struggles that we're having, with survival, with, dreaming, with, moving forward, growing and living, our full potential, right? So just talk to us through that. I'll talk us through that.
I used to be somebody who used to subscribe to the idea that if you're feeling pressure, it's because you want to feel pressure. This was a long time ago before I actually saw that pressure play out in my own life.
Pressure is not a child's play. I'm not even kidding.
And yes, to a degree, you can also make the choice not to be pressured. But then there are a lot of realities that have been fueled by also the auto realities that we see on social media. Because it's very easy to look at somebody who, out of the blues, you go on social media and you check their age 20 and you're already clocking 30. And they are doing everything that you can only dream of.
And we're not talking about people who are doing wrong things now.
No.
We're talking about young people who are doing
actually doing well for themselves. So you see those things and you start wondering, are you a spoon? Those kind of things. So pressure is real.
Yeah.
But I'm not more concerned about pressure as I'm concerned about our response to it. It is how you respond that determines how you turn out. By all means, I say practice positive frustration.
Please help us understand.
There should be a healthy frustration. That push that shows you if this person is doing it and they have the same head that I have and they have, and I don't know if you've been in a situation where you saw someone doing something and you weighed yourself and give me this platform. I can do this better
collect
than
this person's job.
You have the potential, but somehow things have not aligned. And then you can either choose to respond by drowning in shallow waters of despair, or you choose to let it be a motivation to seek out how can I create an alternative since this has already been taken, which takes me back to everybody trying to become the same thing. I think our culture has drowned every sense of originality from us, that so many times we want to build our life after the picture that looks like this is the perfect semblance of what success should be. There is nothing wrong with feeling a bit of pressure, like you mentioned, from seeing things online, and although there's been an overload of an overload of, I won't call it content, an overload of information on the streets of social media, the true, the false, the unclear.
Yeah. People just selling their
People
ideologies.
just sell everything. You choose what to subscribe to. But you also have to have that bit of self-worth, because everything you do, your self-worth reflects. You have to build yourself, but be true to yourself to know indeed I'm building myself.
Yes.
There should be a place of developing to be able to compete. If that threat is missing, there was a time we were cleaning ourselves because of depression. That might be someone's case. A lot of people who have had to deal with depression are not dealing with it because there are people that have sat down to ask questions and they realize they have not tried anything at all. Their CV has remained the same for 5 years. And within the space of 5 years, you have not attempted to pick up a skill that will aid you get to that place you are heading to pick up somebody and listen to, follow, maintain proximity, build nothing. It doesn't happen. Success only answers to those who are willing to pay the price. And many times, unfortunately, in today's world, we the youths are not willing to pay the price. Pressure is real, but you choose how you respond to it.
And young people these days, because I want us to get practical a bit, because I want us to also give out step-by-step ways that a person who at this point doesn't even know which way to look and how to begin, can start up. Jay, if you would be sincere with me, I'm a broadcaster, I'm a journalist, and part of the programs that I do, we talk about things that happen in Nigeria and what have you, and sometimes you see that the harsh realities on the ground, they are real. They are very, very real. And a lot of young persons are now focusing on the negatives.
True.
From our moral standards, going low every other day, to the quest for young people to get wealthy by all means. I remember one time, I think it was when I was still in Kaduna, and we're talking about something with my teenagers on radio, and I've forgotten how the conversation went, but one of my teenagers talked about how, just give me 1 million naira now. So, when he was saying that, I'm like, okay, everybody pause. If I give you 1 million naira now,
what would you do with it?
And we're talking about a 16 years old, 17 years old, boy. If I give you 1 million naira now, just tell me, help us understand. It was on air. I said, help us understand what you're going to use it and do. And we were there. We're waiting for him to actually say what he's going to use 1 million naira and do. Guess what? I'm going to buy phone. I'm going to buy. Do you understand? And these are things that, even no matter how much you want to think that these things shouldn't push you into doing something negative. These are actually things that are making young people, journey into doing things that it shouldn't even be heard of. We're seeing cases of ritual killings, and then when you check the age brackets, it's still our young. In fact, these days we're looking at 16 years old, 17 years old, using their friends, their what have you, and every other time when you ask questions like why, they'll tell you they need to survive. Oh, mother is sick at home. Oh, I need to do this for myself. I need to make money.
Well, many times the motivation is solely material. Solely material. And that is why I said that our culture will always swallow strategy for breakfast. If I'm being honest, if I'm to be sincere,
please.
the realities that we live in as a Nigerian is quite saddening.
Very.
It's quite saddening. Beyond a lot of persons being confused because they have come to that place of this harsh reality.
People are no longer dreaming. People are surviving. If you have a talent now, you have something that you know how to do well. You're not thinking about how do I scale this thing up. You're thinking about how do I even eat.
Now the structure of the country is operating this false system of hope, if we're being sincere to ourselves. Because it takes a lot now to really invest in your dreams and see it come true. But then, because I've been there, I've been on both sides of the world. and I've come out, I can't come here and just, lean towards there are problems, everybody is suffering. There's always a way.
Yes.
There's always
That's
a
why
way.
we're having this conversation.
It might not necessarily be the first way you pictured, but there's always a way. We have to deal with first the problem of, self-awareness. A lot of us are not self-aware. A lot of us are dealing with internal crisis. A lot of us are yet to even know who we are. There is, I wish I could remember the name of the movie. There is a movie that Angelina Jolie did sometime. They were meant to train an assassin who, what they told him was that his father had died. So in the course of the training, Angelina Jolie walked into the room fierce and started punching him. What are you here for? What are you here for? The guy kept screaming, stop, stop. Eventually the guy screamed, I don't know. And everybody in the room paused. That was an emphatic statement. It is not the blows that is hurting me. It is not the scars that is hurting me. It's the crisis happening within me that is hurting me. I do not even know who I am. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know who to listen to. It's a very painful situation to be in, and a lot of persons are there. And then to be in that kind of situation in a country where the policies are against you, the structures aren't set up to fit whatever dreams you have, that on its own is another challenge to overcome. But then, if there are no challenges, there won't be anything that will quicken us to press for more. The people that we are looking up to in the other side, there was once a man, love him or hate him, Fidel Castro. These were students who decided to take the bull by the horn and create a revolution that saw the emergence of young people. Not long ago, we did something that, although it ended in bloodshed, it showed the resilience, our ability to actually, do something crazy for a change. The NSAS protest, though it was hijacked, but in that place we saw the ability of young people to manage affairs. We saw the ability of young people to be, very open and let people be involved. We can still do it, but it has to start with self-governing. The hardest person to govern is self.
It's self, I agree.
We start with self-governing. You pursue personal development. The world has moved beyond the average blue and white collar
Jobs.
settings.
He's talked to
And,
parents too.
It's moved beyond that, and it's heading to the place where even artificial intelligence, we are living in the age. A long time ago, we were talking about some machines taking over some heavy lifting jobs. Right now, machines are beginning to take over managerial status jobs. So we have to come to that place where we are constantly evolving with the times, and we know what we can offer that will be relevant to whoever the employer is. If that is not the case, you will remain an endangered species, and the likelihood of you emerging or doing anything different or anything changing is very scarce. For somebody who went from doing law to reading history and international relations, and then doing
I think you've gone back to tech again, right?
I'm in tech right now.
Okay.
I'm in tech right. It's the word. Not everybody will be in tech, but you must be able to evolve. I know somebody who, my goodness, I was so amazed. He told me that they are into bricklaying and furniture, and I didn't understand. I never got in the slightest inkling. I couldn't understand what he was talking to, because my idea of anything bricklaying is you wear singlets and one size, you go and carry block, they give you small 3-5, you go to your house. And he said no.
Revolutionary.
He has created an alternative where, from the comfort of your home, you book what you have. We have professionals who have been trained in this, and their data exists in our system. We give you a deadline where we guarantee you that this work will be ready. We tell you what you pay, and we will deliver. They have their carpenters who are doing furniture that can in any way compete with whatever standard you are deciding to import. And I was so amazed with the clients that they are getting. Top-notch clients. He decided to create an alternative and evolve with the times.
Jay, I want us to talk about mindset for a bit, before we journey into talking about the way out, because I want you to give us, step
Practical
by step,
steps.
practical steps. How do you begin, and all of that. So let's sit on mindset for a bit. That's a difficult one, right? For a person who all his life, all their lives, all they've known is struggle. All they've known is poverty, living in one angwa somewhere. You don't even dream. Do you understand? Maybe your parents are not even able to put you through school, and the person is listening right now, because environment
It truly matters.
has a lot that it does to our minds. You know how it is. If you grew up in an environment where people are violent, people are into all sorts of vices, that's all you've ever known. So walk us through how a person can develop a mindset that is totally different from what they've known all
What they're
their
used to.
lives.
The truth is this: it's not an easy journey. It takes a whole lot of work, dedication, and intentionality. Especially when the reality you wake up to every day is what you're trying to fight. So if you're living in poverty, and that is all you've known all your life, and every morning when you open your eye, the first glaring
That's what
picture you
greets you.
see is poverty, is pain. It will be hard to tell that kind of person to evolve,
To aspire and
aspire and all of those
Maguire.
wires and all. But then there has to be a bloody refusal to subscribe and remain. There has to be a bloody refusal. It starts from that bloody refusal to stay in that picture. You can only see the picture clearly if you can see it outside of the frame. So you have to be able to just lead yourself outside this. Now, many of the average Nigerian youths have never read any book outside of what the educational system, gave them to read. And not everybody, somebody who is thinking of surviving, it's not everybody that you give a book to start reading. But I will tell you what worked.
Please help us out here.
This is what worked for me. I was able to start, especially in this age of globalization, I was able to start seeing immense realities by making use of this thing called the internet properly. If you want to keep a man blind, stop him from getting exposed. There is something exposure does to you.
I agree.
And if you cannot attain it by traveling, perhaps you can see it through the lens of that device called the phone. There's a whole lot of materials. We are living in an age of an overload of information. If you can devote yourself to this, the constant rewiring, exposing yourself to as painful as it can be, as exhausting as you can be, dedicating your mind to positivity, dedicating your mind to potential, dedicating your mind to seeing something beyond where you are. The universe has a way of aligning. It will lead you to seeing opportunities, and it might even drive you to maximizing opportunities. But when you restrict your mind to the familiar, you will stay put in the familiar. This is just the first practical step. Just have to start seeing things, see yourself beyond that state.
You know why I totally agree with what you just said now. Because I know there are some persons who will be listening now who would say, "Oh, Sunshine, I don't even have Android phone to start with, so how do I access the internet?"
That on its own is true.
Exactly. And but I know that a lot of young people, there are a lot of young people who have access to these Android
Have
phones,
access to it.
who even have access to data. Some of them do night sub,
Have you not
and they
seen
still
people
use it
who
for
have
the
no means
wrong
of
reasons,
income?
and they are still
Have
complaining.
you not seen people who have no source of income,
Yes,
but they are
but they are
holding
always
the iPhones
online.
in the they have iPhones.
They have iPhones. I'm not even kidding.
They have iPhones.
Do you understand?
So-
But for these other class of young persons who may not have access to maybe the internet, or there are newspapers also, there are magazines.
Dedicate yourself to learning.
I think that's
See,
Jay.
a
I think that
feeble mind.
somebody who wants to find a way can find a way somehow. I don't know.
There's always a chance. Like I said earlier, if you're willing to pay the price.
Yeah.
The old guards won't just give way for you. You have to be willing to make way for yourself. The old guards won't just let go. You have to be willing to step into the platform and say, I'm taking over. I'm doing this. you must dedicate, and that's one of the realities of our time, you must dedicate yourself to constant learning if you want to evolve.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be from the internet, although the internet does a great deal of justice to it. But you have to start from where you are.
Yeah.
There must be somebody who is speaking wise counsel around that you can lend your ears to. There must be somebody around who you have seen, even if they haven't evolved to the level that you want, but you have seen some steps and growth you can approach, you can mirror your life. Not that I'm trying to become this person, but for this stage in my life, I'm trying to place my foot in their footprints. There must be materials around that you can invest your little time to. And if you have the little money, you know, there are free courses out there for those who have access to the
internet. Yes.
There are courses. The meat is so appalling, and I said this with great dismay, how we subscribe to distractions here in this country. Not long ago, whilst the United States and China are practically involved in a Cold War to see who will emerge stronger in technology, in artificial intelligence, and in this struggle for wealth, we were arguing about a celebrity divorce. And we were bickering online.
Somebody sang a song and said, "This is Nigeria."
You know, and we were bickering online. And you see that these are people who, there are people that if you read the structure of the words they put in, you know, the time you invested in drafting these threads, you could actually invest it in writing something that will command someone's attention to reach out to you and say, bro, are you would you mind writing for me? Would you mind doing this for me? There are a whole lot of, this is what globalization has done. Now, it has given you access to a whole lot.
Now, Jay, we
finally make the choice.
Yes. Now we need to get to, because I mean we don't have so much time on our side anymore. So we need to get to. I want you to paint a picture for a young person who is listening right now, who wants to make a change. Right? What should their next 24 hours look like? How do you begin? You've listened to everything that we just said, from talking about the struggles, from giving you examples to some of the solutions that came in between. And you want to begin, you want to take step. I mean, your next 24 hours now, what should it look like? How do you begin?
Start by not denying your reality. A lot of us try to, in that pursuit of something new, we try to deny the reality. Start by not denying your reality. Whether you played a part in your circumstance or you did not play, or you're a byproduct of the actions of other people, you just have to not deny the reality. This is what it is. Then you have to, you just have to bring yourself to the place where you ask yourself the hard questions. What am I doing that is keeping me here that I need to stop doing?
What role am I playing in all of this?
You have to take responsibility. Like I said, help is not coming from anywhere.
And
even
it's sad.
The things that we are saying right now, it just contributes to 1%. Ultimately, 99% of what will push us out is you taking responsibility of your life. You have to ask yourself, what am I willing to, just invest myself in and go all in? Every action you take is a risk to fail. And you might encounter those failures a lot of times. I've had my fair share of failures that time may not permit me to share. I've had my fair share of failures to the point where I had to return to my family home at some point. But then I didn't stay long. I had to push myself out too, because it was me going back to the
world forsakes you, family would never forsake you.
It was me going back to the familiar. I had to also agree. I had to tell myself, man, this is me bouncing back to the comfort zone. You have to ask yourself the hard questions. You have to discover a niche. What is it that I aspire to be? What it is that I want to do? Go all in. Whatever. Our Nigerians have a way of interpreting whatever the cost. Please, whatever the positive cost is.
Thank you.
Just drown yourself in it. And don't neglect the God factor. I can never live too much emphasis on that. The God factor is a very critical thing that we must hold on to. There are areas in my life that I know this one had the touch of the divine in it. It certainly was in me. But of course, the divine had a way of of rewarding the little actions that you took. It is damning. It is a damning thing to know nothing, to know no one, and also to know no God.
Where you gone dey?
You know, it's a very damning situation to be in. You cannot ignore the God factor. And I know we are in a place where we are coming from different religious backgrounds. And I will not sit here to preach to anybody to, adapt to but everybody has to attend a bit of spiritual enlightenment where you just align yourself to the divine. You cannot do without the God factor.
You guys, it's just been a fantastic time of going on and on and on and on. And I just hope that you took out, one or two things from our conversation this evening. 3 things that Jay mentioned, just a few minutes ago. Number 1, you have to understand that this is where I am now. This is my reality. Own it. Do you understand? Don't shy away from it. What's that thing that people used to do and they'll be living a lie? Do you understand? No. Understand that this is, because if you understand that there's a problem, that's now when we begin to look for solutions. Do you understand? So know that this is your reality at the time, and just say, that's where I saw myself in. So what can I do next? Now the next thing that Jay mentioned is understanding that it's all on you. Nobody is coming to save you from anywhere. You have to go all out. You have to decide that whatever happens, I must prove myself to myself. Do you understand the point I'm trying to make? Is 99% you and 1% every other person. And then the last thing that Jay mentioned is that if you decide that you're gonna come to this life, you don't know, you don't have we don't have parents, you don't have helper, you don't have friends, you don't actually have God. This 1 hour that we spent here, it cannot help you. Do you understand? So understand that there's a God somewhere, and look for a way to get to know him. And definitely help is going to come from somewhere. All right. Now I think that
don't forget to take advantage of your current realities. There are a lot of potentials out there that people before us never had. You just have to make the decision to take advantage of these things that are out there.
So just tell us one thing that you want every young Nigerian, to remember when things get tough, because it would always get tough. No matter how rosy, it looks like now, there's going to be a time when you hit maybe rock bottom, or a time where you just hit one hard surface. What's the one thing that you should remember that should be able to keep you going?
Someone said something. He said, if you're going through hell, keep going. You never know what is at the other side.
Somebody will say, the light at the end of the tunnel. Who went to keep it at the end of the tunnel?
So if you're going through hell, keep going.
Yeah.
Now, the truth is this. Whenever you have your back against the wall, you have no option but to just go forward. You can't fall back. There is nothing to fall back to. The only option you have is to go forward. There is always a reward for those who imbibe that blood refusal to give up. There is always a reward. There are a lot of success stories out there that the common component in all of them is I never give up.
Yes, consistency. Just keep going at it. Keep going at it.
Against all odds. Now, it's not going to be easy, but I can guarantee you that it will be simple.
Yeah. It's been a fantastic time with you here, Jay. Thank you so much for finding time, to come, because what we want to achieve with this radio program is to reach out to the unreached, to reach out to young persons who don't know where to go from where they are at now, to just basically let them know that there are young persons who have walked through, the path where you're in right now,
situation is not
and are doing well for themselves, and you too can, and that's why we bring people like you to just come, share your stories, share your thoughts with us. And thank you so much for finding time to be with us on Grow with Sunshine this evening. We appreciate you. You guys, this is the end of today's edition of Grow with Sunshine. We looked at the struggles of young people living in Nigeria and how to survive in today's Nigeria. And trust me, our guest for today, Jhay Harbor, he did justice. to this topic. It's now left for you to now, practicalize, right? They used to say information. Oh, applied information is what is powerful, not just information. Because I mean, if you have information and you're not doing anything with it, I mean, it's of no use. All right. So thank you so much one more time for listening and being part of the conversation. We're going to see you again, but that will be next week, Sunday. Stay bright.